السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه وشكر له على توفيقه وامتنانه، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه. أما بعد. إخواني في الله, the person who has narrated the most hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah has narrated 5,374 hadiths. Followed by him is a man called Abdullah ibn Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu. He's narrated 2,630 hadiths. Number 3 is Anas ibn Malik, who's narrated 2,286 hadiths. Number 4 is our mother Aisha radiyallahu anha, who's narrated 2,210 hadiths. Number 5 is Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, who's narrated 1,660 hadiths. Number 6 is Jabir ibn Abdullah, who's narrated 1,540 hadiths. And number 7 is Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, who's narrated 1,170 hadiths. These are the people who have narrated most of these hadiths. How do we know that Abu Hurairah narrated this number of hadiths? We know this because of one book written by the scholar we speak of tonight. Is called the Imam Baqi ibn Makhlad Alandalusy. Baqi ibn Makhlad Alandalusy. This is one of the greats of Islamic history of Andalus, one of the greatest scholars to appear. And Ikhwani fillah, his books for hadith and his book for tafsir, the scholars have said no one has compiled such excellent books. However, these books, they are lost. Because of all the things that happen in Andalus, these 2 books are lost. So if you're able to go search for these books in Spain or in France or in Germany or wherever you find it, we as the Muslims will pay you millions or 10 millions of dollars, because that's one of the treasures of Islamic history. If you can find the books of this Imam Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Andalusi, great treasures that will pay you in gold or in diamonds as you wish. Qani fillah, this is our lecture for tonight. We look at this scholar Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Andalusi rahimahullah. His full name, Qani fillah, is Baqi ibn Makhlad ibn Yazid al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, from the lands of Andalus, born in Qurtuba in the month of Ramadan, the year 201 of the Hijri calendar. He was born in the year 201 of the Hijri calendar, the month of Ramadan. As was the way of the Muslims, the first thing they do is they study the Duksi system. In Kenya, you could call it Duksi. Those days they used to have katatib. So you go to the katatib, you study the Quran, you memorize the Quran, and you learn the Arabic language. Thereafter, you take knowledge from the scholars of your country. So he took knowledge from the scholars of his country, amongst them Muhammad ibn Isa, amongst them Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi, that we spoke of last night. Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi, I forgot to mention last night, he was a person who used to raise his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah answers his dua. He was mujab al-da'wah. Allah will answer his dua. That was his secret between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are people who, when they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask for anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers their dua. So he's one of the studies under them. This Baqi ibn Makhlad ikhwani fillah, the first journey he set out, he's traveled for 20 years to seek the knowledge of the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The second time he traveled for 14 years. First time 20 years, second time 14 years, total of 34 years. And ikhwani fillah, all those times, all those travels, lam yura rakiban ad-dabba qat. He has never used any form of transportation except Route 11. You know Route 11, except walking. All those travels that he traveled, not once did he go on a horse or a camel or a caravan. Never. All completely walking, except where it was required, for example, to cross a river, that of course a boat. But otherwise, no other form of transportation except walking. This man, he traveled and took the knowledge, as you mentioned, Andalus. He traveled in North Africa. He took the knowledge of the scholars of North Africa. He traveled Haramain, Makkah and Medina, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, that is known as the land of Sham. If you're told Sham, it is Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. These 4 countries. Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine. 4 countries. Those are Sham. Also he studied in Iraq, in Kufa, in Basra, in Wasit, and in Baghdad. This is one of the greats of Islamic history. He studied under the Imam Sihnun also in North Africa. One of his most famous incidents, one day he travels from Andalus. He wants to go to see the Imam of Hadith, the Imam of Ahlus Sunnah, Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani. Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani is one of the greatest scholars in Islam, who was born in the year 164 of the Hijri calendar. He passed away in the year 241 of the Hijri calendars. The 4 madhabs we mentioned, Imam Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. One of the great scholars of Islam, and he had many hadiths. He had a book known as Musnad that had many hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ. The scholars, they used to say Imam Ahmed has memorized 1,000 hadiths. How much is 1,000 hadiths? 1 million. 1,000 times 1,000. He had memorized 1 million hadiths and athar from the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba and the Tabi'in. So he's one of the greats of Islamic history. So Imam is traveling from Andalus, always walking to Baghdad. That's a distance of about 8,000 to 10,000 kilometers. Walking mountains, hills, you take other routes, almost 10,000 kilometers walking. When he's about to reach Baghdad, he's informed that Imam Ahmed is under house arrest. He's not allowed to teach any lesson. Why? Because of the fitna, a trial we had mentioned previously, the trial in history that's known as the trial of the creation of the Quran. The people who were leading the Muslims at the time, the Khalifa al-Ma'mun, and al-Mu'tasim after him, and al-Wathiq after him, they were forcing down the throats of the scholars this philosophical argument that the Quran is not Allah, hence it's a creation. So they are forcing down on the people that the Quran is a creation of Allah. Yet we as the Muslims from before that and after that, we have the belief that Allah's book, the Quran, is His words that He spoke with. It is not a creation, it is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they are forcing down the throats of all the scholars this philosophical argument. And amongst the scholars that stood firm against this philosophical argument is Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani. He was whipped by al-Mu'tasim and he was jailed. Al-Mu'tasim, as you know him, is one of the heroes of Islamic history, the Khalifa. He had a woman been taken by the Romans and slapped. When he heard that a Muslim woman was slapped, and she screamed, "Wa Mu'tasima, Wa Mu'tasima." He took an army all the way from Baghdad to the land of the Romans and conquered the great Amuriya, the state of Amuriya, the province, all because of one Muslim lady who was slapped. But this man, from amongst his sins, he is the one who whipped and tortured Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani. So Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Andalusi, he's entering Baghdad. He's walked 9,800 kilometers, only like 200 kilometers left for him to reach Baghdad or so. He's told Imam Ahmed is not allowed to teach. Now wonders, I have come all this way, what do I do now? I have come all this journey for this one purpose for Imam Ahmed, what do I do? So he enters Baghdad. He goes around and he sees a gathering of students sitting under a scholar. He asks, who is this scholar? He's told this is the great scholar of Jarh Ta'dil, the Imam Yahya ibn Ma'in. So he hears Yahya ibn Ma'in is being asked, what do you say about so and so? He says, so and so is weak in hadith, don't take his hadiths. So and so, what do you say about him? This one is thiqah, take his hadiths. He's impressed with his knowledge. So he goes to him, close to him, he finds an opening and he sits next to him and says, "Oh Abu Zakaria," Yahya ibn Ma'in, "Oh Abu Zakaria, I have come from very far. Kindly, I have a few questions, please allow me to ask." So he asks about some of his sheikhs that he had gotten hadiths from. Baqi ibn Makhlad had gotten hadiths from over 280 sheikhs. So he's asking, so and so, so and so, so and so, so and so. Then he asks, what about Hashim ibn Ammar? Yahya ibn Ma'in says, Hashim ibn Ammar, Abu Walid, a Dimashqi, is from Damascus. He's a person of salah, is thiqah, is authentic. If he gives you a hadith, that hadith is okay, you can take it. The people said, enough. You have taken all the questions, give us a chance. So he says, okay, one more question, O Imam. He says, what do you say about Ahmed ibn Hanbal? Yahya ibn Ma'in looks down and says, Amithli yus'al an Ahmed? The likes of me has been asked about Ahmed? ذاك إمام المسلمين. That is the leader of all the Muslims. وخيرهم وأفضلهم. And the best of the Muslims and the most honored in status of the Muslims. That is the Imam of Ahlul Sunnah. You ask me about Imam Ahmed? He's very impressed. So he decides that I still have to meet this man. Regardless of his house arrest, I have to find a way. So he goes and looks for the house of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal in Baghdad. He comes to the house of Imam Ahmed and he knocks at the door. Imam Ahmed is wondering, who are you? He says, I am a student of knowledge. I have come a great distance just to seek knowledge from you. He says, haven't you had the trial I've gone through? I'm not allowed to teach anything. He says, yes, I've had. But what do you want me to do? So he says, Imam Ahmed, please enter here. We don't despise to see you. So he enters just like a compound, the compound of the house. So he enters the compound. Imam Ahmed says to him, Min ayna atayt? Min Ifriqiya? Where are you from? Are you from Ifriqiya? Ifriqiya is Tunisia. Tunisia was called Ifriqiya in the history books. He says, are you from Tunisia? He says, no. I have to cross a sea to reach Tunisia. I am from Andalus. Subhanallah. You are from the land of Andalus that far? I wish to serve the likes of you. I wish to spread my knowledge to the likes of you. But you see the situation that I am right now. I am under house arrest. I am not allowed to teach anyone. Baqi ibn Makhlad says, I am a person who no one in Baghdad knows. I am a stranger to all the people of Baghdad. Every single day allow me to come and look like a beggar. I knock at your door wearing clothes of a beggar. Then you allow me to enter your compound. And if you give me even one hadith every day, that is sufficient for me. So Imam Ahmed says, yes, you can do that, but one condition. Do not be present in the study of hadiths of other sheikhs so that you are not known at all as a student of knowledge. Says, that is okay, I will do that. I will not go to any other class apart from your class. So every day, this Baqi ibn Makhlad Alandalusy rahimahullah, he wears clothes that are torn. He wears a turban that's very dirty. Then he comes at a particular time to the house of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. And he knocks the door and he says, Al-Ajra rahimakumullah, Al-Ajra rahimakumullah. Reward, your reward is with Allah, may Allah have mercy upon you. So Imam Ahmed opens for him the door, allows him to enter the compound, and gives him one hadith or two hadiths or three hadiths if he's lucky. Every day says Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, قال حدثني عبد الله بن مبارك, قال حدثني so and so, عن فلان فلان, عن أبي هريرة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, عن ابن عباس عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So he gets over 300 plus hadiths in this way. Thereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed the Muslims that the leader Al-Wathiq, who was a person who was also spreading the fitna, he died. His brother became the new Khalifa, or his son. I think his son or his brother, I'm not sure. I think his son became the new Khalifa of the Muslims, Al-Mutawakkil. Al-Mutawakkil removed this fitna of claiming the Quran is a creation of Allah. He brought back the Sunnah, saying that the Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, غير مخلوق, not a creation. And he allowed Imam Ahmed out of house arrest, and he allowed him to teach once again. So Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal starts going back to his gathering. He used to be known before Ikhwani Fillah as the Imam of Fiqh and Hadith. But after this trial, he was known as the Imam of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So if you ask who's the Imam of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, when it comes to the top is this Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal al-Shaybani rahimahullah. So he gathers many students, sometimes 20,000 students are in his lessons. There's no speaker, of course, but he speaks. Then a person over there makes his message reaches there, like a broken telephone, like that game that we play as children. So whenever he sees Baqi ibn Makhlad, even if he is late to the gathering, he makes sure, no, Baqi, come stand, come sit here next to me. And he says to the students, هذا يضرب به المثل في طلب العلم. This is the person who is a good example when it comes to seeking knowledge. This is someone who walking all distances, and he comes in that manner as a beggar to seek hadith. هذا يضرب به المثل في طلب العلم. Another time, Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Andalusy rahimahullah, he was unwell. So he stays at the lodging he was staying in, an inn or a lodging in Baghdad. Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, he does not see Baqi. He's told, where is Baqi? He says, Baqi is sick. Baqi is sick. There's no class today. Let us go visit Baqi ibn Makhlad. The people of the lodging are wondering, what is this gathering that's coming towards us? It's the Imam of the Muslims, Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal al-Shaybani. Why has he come to us? He comes to visit this student of his, Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Andalusi. He had such a great status, even with this Imam, Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Andalusi. So the people started taking care of him. He says, Wallahi, they were giving me food and drinks and taking care of me better than my family because of the barakah or the reward they wanted to get from honoring this Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal al-Shaybani. So he finishes his studies of knowledge, Ikhwani fillah, and he goes back to Andalus. He goes back to Andalus to spread this ilm, to spread this knowledge that he had gotten from the ulama, that he traveled all the world. So he goes back to Andalus. The scholars, they say, the person who brought fiqh of Imam Malik is Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi, we mentioned last night. And the one who brought the ilm al-hadith, the knowledge of hadith of Prophet ﷺ, who brought the sunnah to Andalus, is this Imam Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Andalusi. He comes to Andalus with many books. He comes with Kitab the book Al by Imam Shafi'i. He comes with the book At-Tarikh by Ibn Khayyat. He comes with the book the Seerah of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. He comes with many excellent books, Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah. So he starts spreading this knowledge, and he does not get restricted to a madhab. He gives fatwa based on the hadiths, based on the opinions of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, even if it goes against any madhab. This always brings problems, Ikhwani fillah. In history, if a scholar speaks independent of the madhab of the country, people, they get threatened. So many scholars started a fitna against him. They claimed he was a person of bid'ah. They claimed he was a zindiq, he was a heretic. And they complained to the Khalifa or the leader of the Muslims, Muhammad ibn Abdurrahman al-Awsat, about him. So Muhammad ibn Abdurrahman al-Awsat tells Baqi ibn Makhlad, come, bring this book you're talking about, Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah. I want to see it. All the scholars are brought, read it. He reads it in the gathering, Khanifillah. Muhammad ibn Abdurrahman, the leader of the Muslims of Andalus, is very impressed. He says, this is an excellent book. In fact, photocopy it and spread this in the land of Andalus. And he says to him, Irwi ma indak wanshur ilmak. Narrate everything that you have and spread your knowledge. So he started spreading the knowledge of the Sunnah. So much so he says, لَقَدْ غَرَسْتُ فِيهِمْ غَرْسًا لَا يُقْلَعْ إِلَّا بِخُرُوجِ الدَّجَّالِ. I have kept hadith knowledge so much in Andalus, it shall never be removed except with the coming of the Masih al-Dajjal. This man is one of the greats of Andalus. He used to be so loving and so caring of the masakin. Aslam ibn Abdul Aziz, he says, one day I'm walking with the Imam Baqi ibn Makhlad in Qurtuba, and he sees a poor person in Qurtuba. He doesn't have any clothes. He removes his thobes and he gives to that person. Another time, a lady had some issues of oppression. She was wronged. So he walks with the lady from Qurtuba to Jayyan, over 150 kilometers. Another time, another man has a complaint. He walks, he never climbs a horse as a camel as mentioned, walks from Qurtuba to Ishbilia, Sevilla, 200 kilometers. Another time he walks from Qurtuba to Albira, over 300 kilometers, just because of a madlama, because some Muslims were oppressed. This man used to perform jihad so many times a year. He performed a total of 72 jihads against the kingdoms of the Nasara in the north. He used to perform a lot of jihad. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, رِبَاطُ الْيَوْمِ وَاللَّيْلَ خَيْرٌ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَمَا فِيهَا. That a person who stands to protect the borders of the Muslims from harm is better than the one than everything in the dunya and everything in it. One day is better than the dunya and everything in it. But this Imam had done jihad for 72 times. Also, he used to be a person whose dua was answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One day a lady comes to him and says, my son has been taken by the Christians. Please assist me to look for money so that I can pay his ransom. Says, Baqi made some dua silently And the lady left. A few days later, she comes and says, "Oh Imam, Allah has answered your dua. My son is here. And he wants to tell you an interesting story." So the son says, "Oh Imam, on that day that you made the dua, I have confirmed. It was that particular day and that time. I was in chains. Suddenly the chains fell off. I don't know how, they fell off. They called the welder or the blacksmith to come and make new chains. He made new chains and they fell off. The people who are taking me were wondering what is happening here. So they called their priests and their monks. And the monks asked me, "Do you have a mother who is left somewhere in Andalus?" Says, "Yes, perhaps it's Allah who has answered her dua." So he used to be known as a person whose dua was answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ikhwani fillah, this man has an interesting timetable. As Muslims, we should have our own timetable. We should have goals in life. You don't want to live this life like you are not present in this dunya. Ikhwani fillah, this man used to fast every single day, except Friday. Every single day he will fast. Fajr prayer comes. He prays Fajr in the mosque. He reads a sixth of the Quran. A sixth of the Quran is how many juz? It's 5 juz. About 100 pages. He reads 5 juz in the morning. Thereafter he starts teaching students. Starts teaching them knowledge that he has gotten from his scholars. He teaches them all the way to Dhuhr. Dhuhr time, this is fasting, and he's fasting. He climbs the minara up and he gives the adhan for Dhuhr. Then he prays Dhuhr with the Muslims. Thereafter he starts teaching again until Asr. Asr comes, goes up, he gives the adhan and he prays Salat al-Asr with the Muslims. And he teaches them maybe for 1 hour or so. Thereafter, he goes to the graves to make dua for the Muslims who are buried there. And he remembers death and he cries a lot. After that, he comes and he prays Maghrib with the Muslims in the mosque. He goes to his home, he takes his iftar. Immediately after iftar, he goes to visit the neighbors and he talks to them, asks them from their dunya and their deen, whatever is related to their religion, or whatever is related to their worldly affairs. Isha comes, he goes to the mosque, he prays Isha. Then he goes and spends time with his wives. I don't know if he had multiple wives, I did research that. With his family and with his kids. He spends time with them, then he sleeps. After he sleeps, he wakes up a little bit later on and he prays 13 rak'ah. In this 13 rak'ah, ikhwani fillah, he completes the entire Quran in one night. In the Qiyamul Layl. This was his timetable every single day, fasting except on Friday, and every single day he used to pray 100 rak'ah. Ikhwani fillah, this man has a book that we mentioned is known as Musnad. Is arranging the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ based on the names of the Sahaba. But his book is bigger than even the Musnad of his Shaykh, Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal. His book is not only arranged by the names of the Sahaba, he also arranges every Sahaba on the basis of fiqh. So his book is a Musnad and also arranged in the basis of fiqh. That's why you can tell the number of hadiths that have been narrated by Abu Hurairah is 5,374, because there's no other hadith book on earth that has this many hadiths for Abu Hurairah except the book of Baqi ibn Makhlad Alandalusy rahimahullah. He has a tafsir. Imam Ibn Hazm al-Andalusi says, "Wallahi, I do not know any tafsir in Islam that's even close to this tafsir, including the great tafsir of Ibn Jarir al-Tabari." As Muslims right now, we say the first book when it comes to tafsir is Ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Ibn Hazm al-Andalusi says, "Wallahi, even Ibn Jarir al-Tabari does not come close to this book of Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Andalusi." So, ikhwani fillah, if you're on a treasure hunt, or those games you used to play as children, and if you find these books, the Muslims will honor you with even billions of dollars, because that will be a great find. The books of this great Imam, Baqi ibn Makhlad al-Andalusi. Born in the year 201 of the Hijri calendar, he passed away in the year 276 of the Hijri calendar at the age of 74 or 75. He lived glorious life, he died a glorious death. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him. Inshallah, Ikhwani Fillah, we'll be taking a short break for about a month. Then we shall resume with our classes regarding the history of the Muslims in Andalus, because we have some other obligations. So you'll forgive us, inshallah. Then we'll continue thereafter. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.